Okay, hello. So this lesson for today assumes that you have learned the following. Okay, conversion from degrees to radians and vice versa, quadrantal angles, coterminal angles, signs of trigonometric functions on each quadrant, trigonometric functions of special angles, using reference angles, basic trigonometric identities. Okay, so kailangan alam na natin to. That's important thing. Okay, so yung prerequisite skills natin will come from the knowledge of these concepts. Okay, so our lesson objectives for today is ROR to derive trigonometric identities involving sum and difference of angles, derive the double and half angle formula, simplify trigonometric expressions, and prove other trigonometric identities. So let's start with the recall of these identities. Yan, so I hope you are familiar already with the trigohexagon. So we have the reciprocal identities, the quotient identities, as well as the Pythagorean identities. And once again, let me reiterate that we are not restricted to these forms, no? Like yung cotangent theta being equal to 1 over tangent theta, can also assume the form na pwedeng mag-swap tong dalawang to, like tangent theta equals 1 over cotangent theta. Same as for this one, pwedeng mag-swap like sine theta equal to 1 over cosecant theta. And itong dalawa naman na to, cosine is equal to 1 over secant. Or similarly, the product of secant and cosine is 1. The product of this is 1. Also the cotangent and tangent. Tapos ito din, pwedeng mag-swap tong dalawang to. Pwedeng mag-swap tong cotangent as well as the sine theta. Tapos ito naman pwedeng yung minus version, ano? Pwedeng halimbawa 1 minus, if you move this to the other side, 1 minus cosine squared is equal to sine squared. Like for this case naman, if you move the 1 to the other side, making it negative 1, tangent squared minus secant squared will be equal to negative 1. Yung mga versions na gano'n, dapat familiar tayo. Hindi tayo dapat makulong dito sa forms na ganito lang. Okay? So ayun, pwede silang ma-manipulate algebraically. Okay. So we start with the general addition formulas. Hindi ko na i-derive yung formulas for the basic addition formulas. I will just be presenting this to you. So we have the sine of a sum of two angles. Yan. So sine of the angles A plus B, sine of the sum of A plus B is equal to sine A cos B plus cos A sine B. So a moral of the story, we don't just distribute this, no? Kasi distributive property applies for the set of real numbers. Remember, this is not a number, this is a function. So you don't just distribute that to make it sine A plus sine B. This is the sign expansion of a sum, okay? If you have the counterpart of this, yung difference niya, yan, the plus, making it minus. So yung middle operation din dito becomes a minus. So take note that you have exactly the same pairing, no? Sin A cos B, cos A sin B. Yan. So sin cos, cos sin. So same pairing except that for the sign of a sum, this is addition. For the sign of a difference, this is subtraction. Okay? Minsan sinasabi ko sa mga students ko, if that's a sign, we follow the sign. Okay? That's why following the sign, if this is plus, this will be plus. Again, if this is a sign, we follow the sign. So if that's a minus, this will come up minus. Again, sign expansion is sine cos, cos sine. Okay? If that's A, B, you have A, B, A, B. Take note that these are variables representing random values of angles. Okay? Now, if you have a cosine expansion, yun yung cos, cos, sine, sine. Yan, cos, cosine, sin. Okay? So, if that's a cosine, if that's a plus, this will be minus. So, yan yung cos A, cos B, minus sine A, sine B. You don't follow the sign kasi it's not the sine function anymore. Okay? So, if that's the other way around, cosine of A minus B, the minus becomes a plus. So, same order, no? Cos A, cos B, sine A, sine B. This is a sum of two products. This is the first product, second product. Magkasama dito yung dalawang cosine, magkasama yung dalawang sine. Sa sine expansion, magkasalisi, no? Ang kasama ni sine, yung cosine of the other angle. Okay? Kasama ng cosine ng isa, yung sine of the other angle. Parang yung pairing is salisi, no? Unlike ito, cosines go together, the sines go together. Okay? Ayun, so if that's plus, this is minus. If that's a minus, that's plus. Okay? So, pwede nyo idagdag ito sa inyong e-notes. Ayan. Sabi ng icon natin, that's very important. One of the basic formulas in trigonometry that will be very useful for you in the future. So, if you have a tangent expansion, remember tangent of any angle. See, this is theta. Tangent theta is equal to sine theta over cosine theta. Now, our theta is not as simple as a single value. It's a sum of these angles, no? So, replace natin si theta by a plus b. Okay? So, it will be this expansion over cosine expansion. So, ano nga ba yung sine of a plus b? Using the identities that we just presented on the previous slide. Ayun, yun yung mahaba, no? It's not just sine A, sine B. It's sine A cos B plus cos A sine B. Let's place it on the numerator. Tapos ito naman yung cos cosine sin, no? Cos cosine sin. Cos cos sine sin. Pero if it's a plus, this is a minus, no? So where is that? It's right here. Okay, so let's write it there. Now what we're going to do is divide both numerator and denominator by cosine A, cosine B, cos A, cos B. Kasi gusto natin maging 1 lang tong term na to. At least one of the terms ma-simplify kasi we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Each term represented by this product, by different products. So ito, this product, mga products, ano? So we have the numerator as this. Dinivide natin by cos A, cos B. Similarly, dapat gawin natin yun sa denominator. Okay? So, ayun, may magka-cancel na mga terms or factors. So, this one will become just 1. Okay? Tapos, this one is tangent. Take note, this is tangent. Tapos, this one will cancel out. Okay? So, ito, tsaka ito, that becomes just tangent of A. Ayan. Tapos, dito din, magka-cancel yung cosine A. So, magiging tangent of B naman, no? So, this is tangent A. This will be tangent B. Sine over cosine, same angle, no? So, ito naman will become equal to 1. Okay. So, that's tangent A plus tangent of B. Tapos, denominator is 1 minus, this is minus. Dito walang nag-cancel. So, this is tangent A. You can just combine this. Itong fraction na to is tangent A, itong fraction na to is tangent B. So, you have 1 minus the product of tangent A times this product, which is tangent B, or this quotient rather, that's tangent B. Yan. So, that's the formula. We just derived the tangent expansion to tan plus tan over 1 minus tan tan. Yan. This is one of the most beautiful formulas in mathematics kasi the 4 basic operations in mathematics are here. We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and of course, the entire thing is division. Okay. So we can derive the tangent of a difference similarly. So sine of a difference over cosine of the same thing, no? A minus B. So using our formulas again, we have this for our numerator. And we have this for our denominator. Let's place it there. Okay. So, ang pang-divide naman natin, si cosine A, cosine B pa din, no? Okay. So, we have cos A, cos B, dividing both numerator and denominator by cosine A, cosine B. This time, ang magka-cancel naman dito, si cosine B. Okay. So, we will cancel the cosine B there. Tapos, sa second set, we cancel the cosine A. Tapos for the denominator, we can get rid of cosine A and cosine B. Canceling both of them means the entire thing will just be equal to 1. Tapos for this naman, this will be tangent A, tangent B. So let's do it here. This is tangent A minus the tangent of B all over 1 plus this is tangent A. Tapos the other one, the other quotient is tangent B. So, ayun, tangent of a difference is tan minus tan over 1 plus tan tan. Okay? So, parang nag-swap lang, no? That's minus, kaya minus yung nasa taas, plus yung nasa baba. Take note, it's coming from sine over cosine kasi. Kaya yung sine kasi, di ba, yun yung following the sine. as in SIGN. So if that's a minus, minus yung nasa taas, plus yung nasa baba. So laging opposite sila in sign. Okay? Pero same order, no? Tan A, tan B, 1 plus or 1, tapos tan A, tan B. Following this order. Okay? So let's go to our example. Let's summarize muna pala the formulas before we proceed with our example. So I want you to take a look at these formulas. You can include this in your e-notes. These are very important. Okay, so we will go back to this in our derivation for double and half angle formulas. So let's see our first example. We have sine 75 degrees. Sine 75 degrees is not a special angle, but we can write that in terms of a sum of two special angles that we know. Ito yung alam natin, no? 30, 45, 60, 90, and 0. Okay. So these are the pi versions, pi radians versions. Tapos ito yung mga special values natin. Okay. Although sine 75 can be verified using calculator, kaya alam, minsan ang i-display ng calculator is not an exact value, decimal, ano? So we better use the sum of 45 and 30 degrees. Okay? So, pwede naman ting 30 and 45, no? Kasi commutative naman ang addition natin. So, sine of a sum. So, gagamit tayo ng addition, sine of A plus B, where 45 is our A, 30 is our B. So using the formula, ito yung A, this is B. So plugging them here, 45, 45, that's our A, and B is our 30 degrees. And then, ano ba yung sine 45? Sa-substitute natin. Remember, this represents a single value. This represents a single value. So parang dalawang numbers na imumultiply mo dito. Ito din, dalawang numbers na imumultiply mo dito. So we have a product plus another product. Okay? So sine 45 cosine 30 plus cos 45 sine 30. This is square root of 2 over 2. This is square root of 3 over 2. This one is again square root of 2 over 2. And this one is 1/2. Okay? So simplifying this will be square root of 6. Tapos dito naman square root of 2. Pareho silang over 4. So pinag-isa na lang natin ng fraction, all over 4. So this is the exact value of sine 75 degrees. Yan. You can verify that this will give you the same answer if you make use of your calculator. Though sabi ko nga, some calculator will just display, some calculators will just display the value of sine 75 in decimal form. Okay, so compare mo yung decimal form, tapos ito din, evaluate mo, tapos decimal form ang magiging answer, just compare their results. Okay, but this is the exact one. The decimal form is in rounded off version kasi radicals eh. Okay, dokie. Now let's proceed with example 2, cosine 15 degrees. Cosine 15 degrees is a bit smaller, so we can expect to have a difference here. We'll be subtracting two angles, no? So, ano yung isa-subtract natin from here? Pwedeng 60 minus 45, that will give you the same result, no? 15 degrees pa rin. Pwedeng 45 din minus 30. Just like the previous one, no? Again, pwedeng 60 minus 45, that will give you the same final answer that we will arrive at here, okay? So, anong gagamitin among these formulas? It will be this one, the cosine expansion of a difference, no? So, cos, sine, sine. Pero since it's cosine, we don't follow the sign. This is minus, this will be plus. Okay, so ang A natin is 45, the B is 30. So, substitute si 45 kay A, substitute si 30 kay B. So, ano yung cos 45? It's square root of 2 over 2. Cosine 30 is square root of 3 over 2. We're using the values from our table here. Although pwedeng memorize nyo naman or using the Spider-Man technique that yung ating using the fingers technique, no? Yung tinuro natin sa previous video. Cosine 45, that's square root of 2 over 2. Tapos si sine 30 is again 1/2. Okay. So, pareho silang over 4, the fraction, di ba? Pag minultiply ito, that's square root of 6 over 4. This is square root of 2 over 4. So, the result is square root of 6 plus square root of 2 over 4. You notice, this is the same answer we got on the previous example, di ba? Yung ating sine of 75. Sine 75 tsaka cosine 15, parehas na parehas lang pala, no? So, ano yung kinalaman ng 75 kay 15? They are actually complementary angles. So we will realize na pag complementary angles, magiging parang cofunction, we have the cofunction identities eventually. Okay. So sa mga later discussions pa yun, no? So dito muna tayo sa tangent 7 pi over 12. So fraction, no? Yung ating angle. So tangent of 7 pi over 12, ano kaya yung pwede nating gamitin among this? Yan, in terms of pi, we can use 4 pi over 12, which is pi over 3. Tsaka 3 pi over 12, which is pi over 4. Diba? In simplest form. Okay. So, pi over 4 and pi over 3. Okay. There you go. So, gamitin natin yung tangent of a sum. So, tan plus tan over 1 minus tan tan. Okay, there you go. So, tangent pi over 3, where is that? It will be sine over cosine. So, that will be coming from the quotient of the sine and cosine here. So, it will be square root of 3. So, tangent of pi over 4, it's sine over cosine. So, that will just be equal to 1. Actually, yan yung favorite ko among the trigonometric values. Kasi tangent pi over 4, 1. Diba? Among yung mga 1, yun yung mga cute. No? Okay, tapos yung 1 minus, this is fixed. So, okay na tayo sa mean when lagi natin, no? So, yung subtrahen na lang, no? So, what is tangent pi over 3? Nakapackage po ito. It's not tangent, tas multiply mo sa pi over 3. It's not that, no? So, ito, isang buong package to. Tangent pi over 3 is, again, square root of 3. Tapos, tangent pi over 4 is 1. Yan. You notice you're just making use of the same value kasi yung tangent A and tangent B na nasa numerator natin, looking at this formula, will also appear on the denominator. So, dalawang values lang yung kailangan mo actually, di ba? Na-repeat lang. Dito, ina-add mo si tan A, tan B sa baba, minumultiply, tapos yung product nila will be subtracted from 1. Okay. Unlike dun sa mga sine and cosine expansion, kailangan mo 4 na values. Ito, 2 lang actually. Okay? So, you have this as your final answer. Okay? Square root of 3 plus 1 over 1 minus square root of 3. Kaya lang di pa siya naka-rationalize. So, if you rationalize that, review tayo ng ating algebra. We multiply that by what factor? By the conjugate. No? So, it will be multiplied by, let's do it here. Baka nakalimutan how we arrive at that answer. Let's use a pen. Okay, so that will be square root of 3 plus 1 over 1 minus square root of 3. We multiply this by the sort of conjugate, no? Conjugate, quote unquote, no? Kasi it's the plus version. Yan. So, tinawag lang natin conjugate, quote unquote, kasi if it's a minus, we need the plus version para maging sum and difference, tapos difference of their squares yung magiging result. So, square root of 3 plus 1, tas ito square root of 3 plus 1 din, no? Kasi ano siya, by commutative property. Okay, so it's just squaring this factor, no? So, square root of 3, pag in-square, magiging 3 lang, tapos twice the product of them, that will be 2 square root of 3 plus 2 square root of 3. Tapos plus the square of the second term, that will be plus 1. Tapos sa baba, difference of their square. So 1 squared is 1 minus the square of 3, which is 3. Oh, the square of square root of 3 is 3. So 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Tapos you can simplify 3 plus 1. That will be 4. Tapos ayun yung 2 square root of 3. So that means this is our final answer. Yan, in simplest form. Pwede pa palang i-simplify. Sorry about that, no? You can factor out the 2, no? Pwede natin i-factor yung 2. So, pag nilabas natin yung 2, yan, this will become 2 plus square root of 3. Eh, may negative 2 tayo sa baba. So this will cancel out. So you're left with negative sign. Okay? Or negative 1 na lang, no? Pag kinancel mo to. So negative 1 times 2 plus square root of 3 is negative 2 minus square root of 3. So therefore, our final answer, final na po talaga. Yan. Negative 2, let's erase this scratch work. That will be negative 2 minus square root of 3. Okay. Dito sa 2 over negative 2 kasi, di ba? 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. So, minultiply natin. That's why it's negative 2 minus square root of 3. So, let's get to example number 4. Let's find sine of x plus y given cosine x and sine y and the quadrant where x and y belong, no? So, using our expansion, where's our sine expansion? It's there. Yan. So, gamitin natin yung formula 1, no? Yung sine expansion, this one, sine of a sum. So, ayun, sine A cos B plus cos A sine B. Kaya lang instead of A and B, we have x plus y. So, we have to modify our formula accordingly. Okay? Yan, baka naka-fix tayo na A, B, no? So, x and y, x, y tayo ngayon. Okay? So, ang x natin ay hindi given. Instead, ang given sa atin, the cosine x. So, cosine x, this factor is given. Okay? As well as yung sine y. So, this factor is also given. Okay? So, mahahanap na natin tong product nitong dalawang to kasi given na yung 4/5 tsaka yung negative square root of 3 over 2. Ang hindi given yung sine x tsaka cosine y. But we have a way of looking for them using our previous lesson, our previous identities. No? Hanapin natin. No? Okay, so ang challenge is to look for sine x given cosine x that is in quadrant 4. Okay? So ano yung sine x kaya? No? Tsaka yung cosine of y. Para mahanap natin din itong product na to, okay, we have to determine these factors. So, dito tayo ngayon, no? Ayan na siya. Sine x, ano kaya yan? We can make use of the identity. Sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. Since we know the cosine x, gamit tayo nitong right triangle. Okay? So, since ito yung ating Pythagorean identity, we can assume na meron tayo dong 4. Kasi cosine x is 4/5. No? So, 4, that's the adjacent. Tapos 5 yung ating hypotenuse. Again, it's coming from the 4/5 that's given as cosine x. Okay? So, if cosine x is 4 over 5, that's coming from adjacent over hypotenuse. It's like just looking for this leg here. Pero di ba it's a Pythagorean triple, so that means it will be 3. Okay? Or you can solve for this remaining leg using Pythagorean theorem and you will know that this will be 3. 3, 4, 5 triangle yan, no? So that means the sine x will be equal to the opposite sa SOHCAHTOA natin, di ba? Opposite over hypotenuse, that's 3 over 5. Okay? So, since x is in quadrant 4, so okay na tayo sa numerical value, 3 over 5. Di ba sabi natin sa trigonometric values, kailangan natin, aside from the numerical value, yung sign, as in SIGN, whether positive or negative. Malalaman natin yun from the quadrant. Okay? Since x is in quadrant 4, sign is negative. So instead of just 3/5, sine x is negative 3/5. Okay? So may panglagay na tayo dito. Okay? So similarly to obtain cosine y, ganun din yung procedure. Doon muna tayo sa triangle, no? So using the absolute value of this, kasi we'll be referring to the length of the sides. This will be square root of 3. Matic po, no? Yung denominator will be 2. Okay? So, ang ibig sabihin, hanapin na naman natin yung remaining side or leg using the Pythagorean theorem. Pero ano ba yung equivalent ng square root of 3 over 2? Yung counterpart niya is 1/2, no? So, 1 over 2. Okay, so you can also compute for this using Pythagorean, di ba? If you let this, kunwari muna, be equal to a squared plus 3 equals 4. 4 minus 3, so it's 1. Square root of 1 is 1. Okay, so nasan ba si cosine y? Cosine y or y, no? Saan yung y? It's in quadrant 3. So, quadrant 3, ano yung sign ng cosine doon? It's also negative, no? So, cosine is negative, so instead of just 1/2, that will become negative 1/2. Okay? So, i-substitute na natin yung mga factors we just computed. This will be negative 3/5. Tapos this one is negative 1/2. Take note, we expect them to have similar fractions, or we expect them to be similar fractions or having the same denominator. Kaya kapag nakuha mo dito, kunwari ang denominator, magiging ang product ay kunwari over 20, tapos ito over 10 lang, something must be wrong. Okay? Baka may hindi ka na simplify. O di ka ito kunwari ay 16 tapos ito 10, medyo may something din na mali, no? So, this product will be 3/10. This is negative 4 square root of 3 over 10. So, magiging isang fraction na lang sila. That will be 3/10 minus 4 square root of 3 over 10, or 3 minus 4 square root of 3 all over 10. Okay, so that's how we compute for the sign expansion using the using some of the factors given in the sign expansion. Okay. So you can always pause the video if you think you still need to absorb what we've been discussing. Okay. Now let's go to the cosine expansion. This time we're given with the tangent x and secant of y. Okay. So parang tinitrain tayo ng critical thinking dito na how to come up with what we desire given what's available. Okay, so yun yung skill na dine-develop sa atin. How do we come up with our goal given our resources? Okay, so ganun naman sa buhay, di ba? So ano ba yung cosine expansion? So this is the formula we're going to use. That one. So cos, sine, di ba? Cos, sin yan eh, no? So remember, we just have xy, xy, xy instead of just AB, AB. Okay? Ayun, in this case, none of the factors is given kasi tangent x tsaka secant y yung given. So that means medyo pagtatrabahuhan natin ang husto to. Okay? So let's proceed with the finding of each value. So from tangent x, this is actually coming from sine x over cosine x. We can imagine our formula coming from here. So parang pwede nating isipin na meron kang sine value sa taas, cosine value sa baba, tapos hindi given yung ating negative yung fraction, tapos we're looking for their respective denominators. Okay? So ano kaya yung magiging denominator nila, no? So gamit ulit tayo ng triangle. Remember, these are the legs of the triangle, 5 and 12. Okay? It's like looking for their common denominator, which is the hypotenuse of this triangle. Yung denominator, parang kanina kasi given yung isa, no? Yung cosine or sine. So given yung hypotenuse. Dito hindi given. So 25 plus 1, 44, the square of this. 25 plus 1, 44, 169. Square root of that will be 13. Ayun. So 13 will be the hypotenuse, meaning 5 over 13, yung sine x. 12 over 13 is the numerical value for cosine x. Ngayon, negative sign yung quotient. Yung quotient, yung negative, no? Pero, nasa quadrant 2 tayo. So, which one is positive? Which one is negative? So, kung negative yung quotient, that means either of this is negative. The other is positive, unlike signs, no? So, since nasa quadrant 2, di ba? Sa quadrant 2, sino yung positive? Si sine. So, that means sine is positive, cosine is negative. So, we have sine x, 5 over 13, cosine x, negative 12 over 13. Okay, so may pang-plug in na tayo dun sa kay sine tsaka cosine x. What about for the y, no? Kay secant naman. Ito, kung given si secant y equal to this, tapos nasa quadrant 4, positive yung cosine tsaka yung secant. Okay? Remember that secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So, cosine y is just the reciprocal of that, 2 over square root of 5, or 2 square root of 5, rationalize natin, all over 5. Ayan. So pagka ginamitan na naman natin ng triangle principle, sin y magiging over 5. Following na lang natin tong radical muna, no, para madali. So nasa quadrant 4 kaya ini-expect natin negative si sin triangle. Okay? So square root of 5 will be the hypotenuse. Tapos 2 yung isang leg. We're looking for the other leg. Okay? So 5 minus 4 is 1. So that means this is 1. Square root of 1 naman, 1 din. Okay? So lalagay natin si 1 doon. Okay? We want a sign that's negative again kasi nasa quadrant 4 yung y, yung angle. Okay? So rationalizing this, that's negative square root of 5 over 5. Ayan, so mayroon na tayong pang plug in dun sa mga factors natin, dun sa cosine expansion, this one. So cosine x, asan siya? Ayun. Okay, let's substitute it there. Cosine y is here. So ayun siya. Sine x, 5 over 13 daw. So minus sine y is this radical. Ayun siya. So pareho silang over 65, oh, 'di ba? Sabi sa inyo similar fractions. Over 65, this is negative 24 square root of 5. Tapos this is magiging positive 5 square root of 5. So negative 24 plus 5 is negative 19 square root of 5 all over 65. Okay. So that becomes our final answer. Okay, negative 24 plus 5 is negative 19 square root of 5. Pareho sila. Okay. What about the tangent of a difference given tangent x and tangent y? Okay. So ito, dalawang values lang yung kailangan natin, di ba? Yung tangent x tsaka tangent y. So ito lang yun. Okay. So medyo magiging madali to that kasi sa denominator, the 1 is fixed. Okay. So ang worry na lang natin, yung tangent x tsaka tangent y. So instead of a minus b, x minus y yung given. So correct pala natin to. This should have been x minus y. Okay. So it should be 2 minus negative 3. Okay. We replace the tangent x by 2 and the tangent y by negative 3. Tapos dito sabi natin if we're subtracting these tangents, sa baba we're multiplying them. So multiply natin si 2 tsaka si negative 3 sa baba. Okay. So 2 minus negative will be 2 plus 3 which is 5. Tapos dito we have 1 minus 6 which is also negative 5, no? So 5 over negative 5 is negative 1. So tangent of x minus y is just negative 1. Parang ito lang, ano? Parang it's like adding this, no? Okay. Pero that shortcut doesn't always work. Nagkataon lang po na yung tangent of x minus y naging parang sum nitong dalawang to. Okay, so let's have our other identities. No? How can we now derive the other formulas using the previous identities? Paano kaya natin sila magagamit? Let's derive the double angle identities. This will be very useful for you in your simplification of your limits, derivatives, integrals. No? So ano yung mga double angle identities natin? Yung dodoblehin mo yung angle. No? So sine 2x. So that means you have sine of dalawang x. So you can express the 2x as x plus x. So, ibig sabihin, gagamit tayo ng sign expansion. Okay? Bali, lalabas yung a and b natin are both equal to x. So, using this formula, yan yung sine cos cosine. Nagkataon lang na yung a and b natin are both equal to x. Okay? And you notice that in this formula, this product is just equal to this product. Kasi di ba by commutativity, this is the sine x cosine x. So you have exactly the same products being added. So since ina-add mo sila, you have two of them. These are just the same eh, no? So meron kang dalawang sine x cosine x. So this is the formula for the first double angle identity. So sine 2x is just 2 sine x cosine x. Now let's go to our cosine of 2x. Yan. Double angle for cosine. So, ayan yung ating 2x, x plus x, di ba? So, we'll make use of this identity, this formula right there, yung cos, sin, cos, sin. So, cosine x minus sin x. Notice that these are just the same factors being multiplied, no? Same factors being multiplied. So, we can just square this and square this. Okay, so cosine squared minus sine squared x. That's our formula for cosine 2x. Pero wait, there's more. We can write this in other forms. May other version to na pwede nating magamit in the future. Notice that we can make use of the Pythagorean identity. Yan, so kunwari gagamit tayo nito. Okay? Instead of theta, we just have x here. Okay? So we can express actually the cosine squared, ito, in terms of sine squared, di ba? By moving this to the other side, we can express this as 1 minus sine squared. Okay? Tapos ayun pa yung minus sine squared sa isa, yung tinira natin. Okay? So notice that these are just the same, negative, negative, so they won't cancel out. But instead, ang magiging coefficient nila will be negative 2. No? So 1 minus 2 sine squared x. This is the second version of the formula for cosine 2x. Okay? Now, what about if we do this? Yung sine squared naman yung ititira natin dito. Okay? Kung siya naman yung gagamitan natin ng Pythagorean identity. Okay? So, lipat si cosine squared sa kabila. So, for this naman, cosine squared, iset aside muna natin to. No? So, ito muna, dito tayo. Lipat si cosine squared sa kabila. So, ayun si cosine squared x minus the quantity 1 minus cosine squared x. We're being careful, no? So, nilagay natin to sa grouping symbol kasi preceded siya by the minus sign. Okay? So, ayun. Pwede nating ilabas to, magiging minus 1, tas cosine squared plus, magiging plus cosine squared. So, dalawang cosine squared x minus 1. And this is the third version of the formula for cosine 2x. Again, you can opt to take a picture of this slide to include in your e-notes. Okay. So, ayun po, 2 cosine squared x minus 1, 1 minus 2 sine squared x, and coming from cosine squared minus sine squared x. Okay. Kung bakit naging ganito, ginamitan ng Pythagorean identity. Now, what about tangent 2x? Ayan siya, no? So, making use of this formula, we'll use this. That's tan plus tan over 1 minus tan tan. Okay. So, that's 2 tangent x. We can combine this. Tapos sa baba, that's 1 minus tangent squared x. Okay. And this is the formula that we can use pag tangent naman yung given. Okay. Ayan. So, pwede naman tayo mag-half angle identity din. Pero yung half angle identity natin, gagamit tayo dun sa cosine na double angle. Okay? So, sa half angle identity, we can make use of this formula. Cosine 2x is equal to that, no? Ayan. Okay. Take note, since half angle identity tayo, nandito yung nasa left side, tas yung cosine yung nasa right side, yung cosine 2x. This angle here is half of the angle right there. Okay? So, lipat natin yung 1 sa kabilang side. Okay? Or yung cosine 2x na lang nilipat sa kabila, no? Para siya yung positive. Okay? Tapos, we can actually divide by 2, no? We can divide by 2. Same as this. Magka-cancel. Tapos, ito, take note, hindi ito ika-cancel, bawal po yun kasi ang kina-cancel lang natin ay factors. So, ito yung isang factor natin, isang buong factor. Okay? So, ano ba lalabas? Sine squared x is 1 minus cosine 2x all over 2. Pero ang gusto natin yung sine x lang, so we get the square root of both sides. So, sine x is positive or negative square root of the quotient 1 minus cosine 2x all over 2. Again, this angle right there is half of the angle here. Okay, kanina sa double angle, ito, double of the angle here. Ayan. We speak of the left term. Yan, with regards to the name of our identity. Okay. So, kapag ginamit naman natin, ito, no, papalitan natin siya ng x over 2. Yan. Sa kabila, magiging x na lang kasi, di ba, hinhalf mo to, i-half mo din to. Okay? So, if this is x over 2, that will just be x na lang. Okay? Pag ginawa mo pa tong x over 4, ito magiging x over 2 naman. Pag ginaging x over 4 to, this is x over 2. O pag ginawa mo tong 2x, this is 4x. Basta yung relationship nila, this is half of this angle here. Pag ginawa mo tong 8k, this is 16k. Pag ginawa mo tong 3h, this is 6h. Just like that. Okay? Now, paano yung sa cosine? Using this identity, equal to cosine 2x. Ayan po siya. Lipat natin yung 1 sa kabilang side. So, 1 plus cosine 2x is equal to 2 cosine squared x. Okay? So, dividing by 2, yan, to get rid of that factor. Okay, we can cancel the 2's. Tapos, square root natin yung both sides. So, square root. Cosine x is equal to square root of positive negative square root of 1 plus cosine 2x all over 2. This is now plus. Yung kanina minus, di ba? Yung sa sign. Okay? So, this is plus. Yun lang ang difference nila pero parehong may square root, no? So, again, if you get the half of this, you also get the half of this. So, if that's x over 2, this will be x. Kung x over 4 to, this will be x over 2, etc., etc. Okay, so ito yung summary ng ating half-angle identities. Now for the tangent, ito yung sine over cosine niya, di ba? Considering this is our theta. Okay, so pwede nating sabihin na equal yan sa quotient ng radicals na to. Okay, so we can just cancel their 2's. So ang matitira na lang 1 minus cosine tsaka 1 plus cosine. Tinanggal na natin yung 2 na common denominator. Tapos pinag-isa na lang natin yung radical sign. Okay? Tapos pwede natin yang i-rationalize, no? By multiplying by the so-called quote-unquote conjugate. If that's a plus, this is minus. Yan. So it's like squaring the numerator factor, yung 1 minus cosine x. Tapos sa baba, you square the first term minus kasi sum and difference that is very useful, no, sa ating trigo, yung mga difference of two squares. Cosine x, o cosine squared x. O yun. So this is actually an identity. Ano nga yung 1 minus cosine squared? That will be sine squared, no? And that is already a perfect square. Sine squared, anong square root niya? It's just sine x. Ito din, perfect square, nilabas mo sa radical. So it's 1 minus cosine x all over sine x. So that's tangent of x over 2. Okay? 1 minus cosine all over sine. Yan, kung gusto natin na in terms of sine and cosine. Paano naman kung instead of 1 minus, yung 1 plus yung pinag-multiply natin? Pwede rin, ano, kasi magiging perfect square yung denominator. Yung numerator, dun ka naman nagkaroon ng difference of their squares. 1 minus and 1 plus. So, difference of their squares. So, sa baba, you're squaring this binomial. Okay? So, again, 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared. Sa baba, naka-square. Okay? Hinayaan lang natin in squared form kasi tatanggalin natin siya sa radical. So, square root of this quotient magiging sine x all over 1 plus cosine x. Dito, pag sine yung nasa taas, 1 plus yung nasa baba. Pag yung sine ay nasa baba, 1 minus yung nasa taas niya. Okay. So, taking a look at the formulas, we have this so far. Ayan yung mga versions natin. Okay. Again, if you notice, meron tayong positive and negative square root. The positive or negative sign depends on the quadrant where the angle here will lie or will belong. Okay. So you can include this in your e-notes again. This will be very important. Okay. So ayun po, that's the summary of double and half angle formulas. we can also derive the following formula, the following identities. Ito yung sinabi natin, cofunction identities. Sine A is equal to cosine of 90 degrees minus A. That's why they are cofunction. Just like yung sine 75 equals sa cosine of 15 degrees. These are complementary angles. Pag ginawa mong cosine, magiging complementary lang. Okay? Remember, it's coming from the SOHCAHTOA thing. Diba? Yung opposite, magiging parang adjacent kapag kinuha mo yung kabilang acute angle theta. Okay? So, ayun po. Tapos dito rin, pag cosine A, sine naman nung kanyang kakomplementary. Okay? Yung sine A equals cosine B, if A plus B, parang ito yung shortcut nitong dalawang to, sine A is equal to cosine B if A plus B is equal to 90 degrees or if they are complementary angles. Okay? Kunwari, sine 20 is equal to cosine 70. O di ka, sine of 10 degrees is equal to cosine of 80 degrees. O di kaya, kunwari, sine of 75 degrees is equal to cosine 15 degrees. Yun, things like that. Okay? Tapos, similarly, that also applies for secant and cosecant. Kasi, di ba, they are the reciprocals of cosine and sine respectively, si secant and cosecant. So, dapat complementary din for the secant to be equal to cosecant, as well as si tangent A tsaka si cotangent B. Kaya co-function identities. So, yung mga complementary angles yung ginagamit natin. Okay? So, pag even yung function, ang mga even functions natin, yung cosine tsaka secant. No? So, pag even yung function f of negative x is equal to f of x, that's why cosine of negative x is equal to cosine x. Similarly, yung secant ng negative x is equal to secant x. We can make use of 0 minus x to replace the minus x. Tapos gamitan natin ng cosine expansion, yung cos, sine, sine. Anyway, cosine 0 is special, ganun din si sine 0. Okay? So we can actually prove this using cosine expansion where negative x will be expressed as 0 minus x. Again, cosine 0 is 1. Sine 0 kasi is 0. Making use of that. May mga magka-cancel. Kaya cosine x na lang. Pero yung mga odd functions natin, the rest of the trigonometric functions, sila lang yung even. Yung parang pwede mong ignore yung negative sign. Ganun din siya. Diba? Pero geometrically speaking, diba, dun sa mga quadrants kasi natin, remember yung cosine and secant, they are positive sa first at sa fourth quadrant. So, ibig sabihin, if you move positively sa angle natin, pwedeng dito ka mag-terminate. Tapos pag negatively, dito ka mag-terminate. Dito yung counterpart ng negative theta. Pero kung dito siya mag-terminate sa second quadrant, negative yung cosine value. Tapos yung counterpart niya na negative angle, dito naman mag-terminate. Negative pa rin yung cosine value. So kaya yung ating angle dito, yan, pwede mong tanggalin to. It just have the cosine and secant function pa rin na values. Okay? Ayun. Pag dito naman, parang you can move the negative sign of the angle outside and make that a coefficient of your sine x. Kunwari, meron kang sine of negative 120 degrees. This is just equal to negative of sine 120 degrees. Kasi di ba yung sine 120 degrees will terminate on the second quadrant. So sine is positive. This will be positive. Pero with the negative sign, the entire thing is negative. Eh yung yung negative 120 degrees will terminate on the third quadrant. So, ibig sabihin, negative na siya automatically. Kaya, same value sila. Okay? Remember, ang trigonometric values, numerical value, and the sign. And the sign depends on the quadrant. So, you can do this for your assignment to practice. Now, let's fill in the blanks here using the identities we just derived. Yan. Cosine of blank is equal to 1 minus sine squared of pi over 8. Ayan, ano kaya yung ating version dito? 1 minus sine squared cosine Actually, dapat may cosine squared pala, no? Cosine squared, it should be cosine squared of pi over 8. Using the Pythagorean identity lang natin, di ba? So it should be cosine squared of pi over 8. Okay, so what about this second one, the letter B? Cosine 100p plus 1 all over 2. Ano kaya yan? Remember, ano siya, meron kang over 2, parang galing siya sa, tas cosine squared to, nanggaling siya sa ating half angle formula. Di ba? Yan yung itsura na may half angle formula. Yung meron kang ganito. 1 plus cosine x all over 2 is equal to positive negative is equal to cosine of x over 2. Diba? Half of this angle here is this angle. Okay? Now, what about this one? Naka-square siya. So that means if you're going to square both of this, cosine squared of x over 2 of the angle x over 2 is equal to 1 plus cosine x. Diba? Mawawala yung radical sign all over 2. Ayun. So it's just this expression. Parang ito yun. Na ganito yung version niya. Okay? So x is equal to 100p. Tapos ito yung half of 100p. So 100p divided by 2 is 50p. So this is 50p. Okay, half of 100p. Now let's take a look at this example. Find sine 2x if sine x is equal to 1/2. Okay. Sine x is equal to 1/2 and x is in quadrant 2. Okay. So anong gagawin natin para mahanap yung sine 2x? We use this formula, yung 2 sine x cosine x, this one. So making use of that, meron na tayo ng sine x. Ang wala tayo yung cosine x. Okay? But we know nasa quadrant 2 tayo. So gamit tayo again nung katulad ng ginawa natin. 1, meron tayong 1/2 na sine x. So making use of this value, 1 is one side or one leg. Tapos 2 yung hypotenuse. Ayan. We solve for the other leg. And you will arrive at square root of 3. Okay, so that means cosine is square root of 3 over 2 numerically. Pero since nasa quadrant 2 tayo, negative yung cosine. So negative of square root of 3 over 2. Let's write it there. Okay, so ang magiging answer natin, magka-cancel yung 2 tsaka 1/2. They are just reciprocal. So ang natira na lang is negative square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so ayun po. Now, let's consider cosine 2x. Yan, this is sine x is equal to 1/2, no? Same given. So, ito yung ating double angle formula. We can make use of this version para dependent na lang tayo sa sine function. Okay, so gamit tayo ng formula. This is 1 minus 2 times the square of 1/2. Okay, so this will just be 1/4. 1/4 times 2 is 1/2. So, magiging 1 minus 1/2. And that's just equal to 1/2. Yan. Okay, so that's it for example 3. Now, let's go to example 4. Tangent x naman yung hinahanap natin. Tangent of x given sine 2x. Okay, so that means i-replace natin to by, we will replace the x over 2 here by x. Okay, so kung magiging x lang to, this will be 2x. Ito yung magiging 2x. Or ito magiging 2x din. Okay, so we can make use of the second formula kasi para sine yung nasa taas. Sine 2x over 1 plus cosine 2x. Okay, so ang kailangan natin yung cosine 2x. Pero just like any ordinary theta, parang pwede nating i-treat lang to as theta. Yan, parang ito yung theta natin. This is 3/5. No? So 3 yung isang leg, 5 yung hypotenuse. The missing leg is 4. So 4/5 yung ating cosine 2x. Pero 2x is in quadrant 1, meaning all trigo functions are positive. Okay, so cosine of 2x, oh sorry, cosine 2x, kasi ang angle mo dito na consider, this is your theta. Cosine 2x is 4/5. Sorry, this should have been 2x. Okay. So, replace na natin. Si sine 2x is 3/5. Si cosine 2x is 4/5. Simplifying using the PEMDAS rule, no? Or your calculator, this is 9/5, no? So, 3/9 is 1/3. Okay, so that's for our example 4. Now, let's go to our example 5. Hanapin daw natin si sine 2x and then si sine of x over 2 given sine x. Okay? So for the first one, we make use of the double angle formula. So si sine x lang yung given. So meron tayo ditong sa second one, yung half angle formula. Anyway, dun muna tayo kay sine 2x. That is 1/5. So this will be 2 times 1/5. Wala pa tayong cosine x. So hanapin natin yung cosine x. This is 1, this is 5. 25 minus 1 is 24. So square root of 24 is 2 square root of 6. So yun, 2 square root of 6 over 5. That will be cosine x. Okay, so 2 square root of 6 over 5. Positive ba o negative? Nasa quadrant 2 eh. So that means negative. Yan. Finishing touch natin yung kung ano yung magiging sign niya. So ayun, that is negative 2 square root of 6 all over 25. So let's just write it here. Negative 2 square root of 6 all over 25. Ito yung sine 2x. Now for our sine of x over 2. Gamitin natin itong half angle formula natin. So ito yun. Okay? Yung cosine x natin is 2 square root of 6 over 5. So negative 2 square root of 6 over 5. Okay. Ayan. So, magiging answer natin dito is 1 plus 2 square root of 6 over 5. Kasi 1 minus negative, no? All over 2. Tapos, ganyan. Ano kaya yung magiging sign nito? Will it be positive or negative? Okay? Kung yung x is in quadrant 2, that means x is in quadrant 2, no? Asan siya? Andun. Between 90 and 180. This is 180. This is 90. Okay, so that means x is between 90, it's greater than 90, but less than 180. Pag x over 2, we divide both sides by 2. So this is 45, this is 90. So that means yung x over 2 natin, sorry, this should have been x over 2, yung gitna. Let's replace this by x over 2. X over 2 is between 45 and 90, meaning positive. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yung sign of x over 2 will be positive. So, we take the positive root. So, simplifying the numerator, this is 5 plus 2 square root of 6 all over 5. Tapos, multiply natin by 1/2, the reciprocal of our divisor. Tapos, we're getting the square root of that. So, this is over 10, no? Over 10. So, we will multiply by 10 over 10. Okay? Para mawala yung radical sign sa denominator. So, that will be 50 plus 20 square root of 6 square root of 50 plus 20 square root of 6 all over 10. Okay. Yun. Okay. So, ayun po. Let's check it here. Ito yung mga naging answers natin. This is the neater version. That is the cosine x we derive. Okay. So, ito yung neater version of our solution. Okay. Ayun. So, we rationalize that. So, yun yung square root of 50 plus 20 square root of 6 all over 10. So, there you go. Same answer we had on the previous slide. Ayun din, di ba? Ay, sorry pala to. Dapat pala to negative 4. Sorry, 2 and negative 2 is negative 4. Correction. Okay. There you go. Okay, that's for our example 5. So lessons we learned today, trigonometric identities involving sum and difference of angles, double and half angle formulas, simplifying trigonometric expressions, and proving other trigonometric identities. Those will be very important in your calculus when you simplify limits, derivatives, integrals, okay, as well as deriving other functions. Okay, so let's have our time for questions to assess if we really learned our discussion para magkaroon tayo ng confidence kung natuto ba talaga tayo. Let's start with this one. No? Give the missing value or expression. Sine of blank is equal to 2 sine 48 cosine 48. Timer starts now. Okay, fast forward ko yung timer natin. So this is the what we call this, the double angle identity that appears on the double angle, yung 2 sine x cosine x, di ba? Yung double angle natin is sine 2x equal to 2 sine x cosine x. So if Rx is 48, that means twice of 48 is 96. So this is 96 degrees. Okay, so let's go to question number 2. Okay, fast forwarding our timer. Ayan po. Ayan, so yung sine naging cosine. So that means this is a cofunction identity, meaning this and this has a sum of pi over 2. So ano dapat yung nandito? So sabihin natin kunwari this is x muna. We don't know what the value of is. So dapat x plus pi over 2 minus a should be equal to, pi over 2 minus a is equal to 90 degrees. They should be complementary, yung co-function. Identities to, no? Co-function, complementary angles dapat, no? So, complementary meaning the sum of their angles, ito, tsaka ito, the sum should be 90 degrees or pi over 2. Okay? So, we can cancel the pi over 2. Or, di ba, pag minove to sa kabila, magka-cancel din. Tapos, we can move the a to the other side. So, that means x is just equal to a. So, that blank is supposedly a. Ayun. O, di ba, pag inad mo sila, yung naka-encircled na angles, the sum should be pi over 2. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, give the missing value or expression. Okay, fast forwarding our timer. Saan natin makikita to? Sa half angle identity, di ba? Sa tangent of x over 2 is equal to sine of x over 1 plus cosine x. Correct? So, ibig sabihin, if this is 4K, di ba? Yan yung half, no? So, ibig sabihin yung nandito is doble nito, no? So, 4K times 2 is 8K. So, this is 8K. This is 8K. Yon. Okay, so let's go to question number 4. Give the missing value. Okay. So, ito yung nasa half angle identity. Kasi, di ba, instead of having radical, in-square niya, di ba? So, yung cosine of x over 2 or x lang, ganyan yun eh, no? Yan yung positive negative square root of 1 plus cosine x over 2. Instead of having radicals, in-square niya yung both sides, no? So, kaya nagkaroon tayo, nawala ng radical sign, nagkaroon tayo ng square. Okay? So, moral of the story pa rin, half angle identity. So, this is half of your angle here. Kaya kung 10p to, this should be 20p. There you go. Okay, let's go to the last question. Cosine 6x is equal to, wala pala tong blank, no? Where is the blank here? I think this should be blank on this side. Yeah. Sorry for that correction. This is blank. Okay. So what is this? It's coming from the double angle identity. Okay. Diba yung cosine x natin, yung cosine of 2x, meron siyang tatlong versions eh, 'di ba? Yung 1 minus 2 sine squared x, no? So if that is 2x, x to. So that means double yung nandito. So if this is 6x, this one should be 3x. Kasi doble siya nung nandito, or yung nandito sa right is half of this one. Okay? So ayun po. Yan. So that will be for our 5 questions for this set of exercises. So I hope you got 5 out of 5. Yan, very good yun. To end our discussion, cut your excuses in half and double your actions around your goals. Have a good day. God bless you.